Welcome back to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Really, really grateful for the guest that I've got today. As an international success mindset, life, and business coach, Jess is an expert in self empowerment and has become a game changer in the industry. She is known for moving crowds and empowering others for her heartfelt, inspiring story of overcoming extreme adversities, which we will certainly touch on in this podcast, to building multiple six-figure businesses. Founder of the Global Academy, her extraordinary message of impact exceeds thousands of people from around the world, educating, guiding, and inspiring all success seekers to fulfill their passion and purpose. The knowledge, skills, and insight from this woman's life experience is undoubtedly powerful, and her unique combination of fire and elegance makes her a profound and gifted leader in the industry. Jessica's ability to shift your mindset and instill perspective to encourage you to meet your higher self will have you unleash the entrepreneur and build your own success. What an absolute incredible bio, and very fitting for the amazing Jessica. Jess, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
We've been connected, I guess, for a long time, and both been, I guess, in the industry of improving the quality of people's lives. And I've never actually heard your story, so I'm really looking forward to hearing your story properly and being able to maybe hear some things, different angles on that, which maybe you haven't shared before. So I guess for me personally, and for all of our listeners, please enlighten us with the story that is Jessica Kay.
Well, I'm a great storyteller, and my friends always say, "Can you just get to the point already?" So I'll try and give you a version that's not too long-winded, but doesn't leave out the juicy details.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm going to start from when I was 6 years old, actually. I came home from school and I was in such a mood, and my mum asked me what was wrong. And I normally couldn't get out of my uniform fast enough and go outside to play. But this day, I had learnt something at school that rocked my world, and life has never been the same since. And we actually learnt, our beginning class was based on like religion and God and everything. And we learned about death. And the concept just, for a 6-year-old mind, I realized that we were all going to die. And I learned that, death is real and we're all going to die. And so I came home from school this day and I was really upset with my parents because of it. Excuse me. I was upset with them because I thought, why did you have me so I could die one day? And my mum, when I asked her this, was like, yeah, her eyes bulged and she was like, what on earth? What kind of 6-year-old comes home and asks you that? And I said, well, why? And she kept trying to explain to me, about the purpose of life and everything. And I kept saying, but why? Like any 6-year-old would. I was like, but why? And so as I got older, the questions deepened, why am I here? And why are we all here? And I didn't have the best upbringing. I had a pretty rough upbringing. I grew up in a home of domestic violence and drug abuse, and I left home at the age of 17. And the first place I moved into was my friend's car garage. My bed was literally set up next to the washing machine. And I was angry at the world. I had a chip on my shoulder, and I had to fall in line and become just another number in society of getting a 9-to-5 job and paying off my car. And I'd lost myself in that. And I had quite an extraordinary upbringing, minus the dark shadows that followed me. I grew up in the mountains. My parents were stoner hippies, and we had this amazing little cottage up in the mountains, and my backyard was literally a rainforest, and we had natural spring water and no electricity, and my life was like a David Attenborough documentary every day, just vibing on nature. And we had many farm animals and things. And yeah, it was really extraordinary. So to fall into society and living in a suburban area and working 9-to-5 in a law firm, paying off my car, living alone in a unit, I was like, what has my life become? And I'd lost myself in that and started doing more of that soul searching. I got right into self-development, and the first book I bought was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Beautiful. I bought that when I was 14, and I loved that book, and that was the catalyst for me to dig deeper. And then I bought all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books by Jack Canfield, and I knew that if I couldn't find immediate inspiration from my immediate existence and surroundings, from my peers and my upbringing, perhaps I could find it elsewhere in the world, and started to look beyond my immediate existence. And I found it through books. And, the internet wasn't a huge thing back then, so I didn't really have access to that. And I think a lot of people take for granted the ability to be able to draw on that now and utilize that and leverage off that. So back then, if you can imagine, I'm nearly 40 now, so I'm 40 in 2 months, which kind of hurts to say, but it's also a privilege to last this long. So I'm embracing it. And you're only as old as you feel, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So anyway, if you can imagine back then, there was no internet, and you just had to get as much as you could from books and things, and talking to other people. So that's what I did. And then as time went on, and I found myself being quite miserable in my office job. I mean, I did thrive where I learned a lot of skills, and I'm really grateful for that stage in my life, but I just knew there was so much more. I had this burning fire inside of me that I wanted to explore what else was out there. And so I started some side hustles. I posted on social media before and shared the story of a hustler, and that's what I titled it. And I talked about how I formed these side hustles. I started doing promotional work on the side, and I also, through that, got approached by people to do private events. And then I recruited other girls to work under me. And next thing, I was running these private or hosting these private poker games. And I was managing them with all of these women that would come in their tight little dresses, and they'd light cigars and pour whiskey and whatever for these men. And these men were powerful men with lots of money and suits and Rolex and things like that. And we'd have these these poker games in high-rise apartments, in penthouses and things. And it just subjected me to this other life out there, that there are people with a lot of wealth and people with a lot of power. And it taught me to be tough in business, being surrounded by men like that. And, having the courage to run my own show. So my other side hustle was, I was also started a beauty business. I was in the beauty industry, and I was leveraging off my office job to get all the women in the office to come and see me for beauty services. And so I'd work, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5 in the office, and I'd race home and then service my clients till at least 9 o'clock at night. I never watched TV. My physical health wasn't the best because I wasn't going to the gym as much as I wanted to and things. And it really started to take its toll on me. And I thought, well, there's got to be a better way. Like, I'm working hard, but I need to work smarter. And so I then took the leap of faith to leave my office job, and I went full time with my beauty industry business. And I also was still doing a bit of the promo on the side, but my staff became unreliable, and it just was one of those things that it wasn't sustainable. So I gave that the flick, and I put all my time and energy into growing my business. And it was really powerful. The first 4 months were struggle street. I had to apply for hardship at the bank and put my car payments on hold because I was putting everything I could into this business. And although I had some clients to start with, it wasn't something that, I was booked out every day, every week. And so I've talked about, walking into the bank that day and having to apply for hardship and really swallow my pride. That was really tough, because I refused to accept handouts, and I never have since I left home at 17. And through that, it really put a rocket up my ass, so to speak. It really showed me that if, burn the boats, basically, sink or swim. So I ended up head down, bum up, just working my absolute, my butt off, and just, grinded it out and hustled hard. And within 4 months, I was booked out every day and had doubled my income from when I was in my office job. And I walked back into the bank, just so proud, just was like, actually, I'm going to pay out my car, So that was really powerful. And from there, I just kept scaling and kept growing. And the business was huge. We attracted celebrity guests when they'd come to town. All the influencers on social media and things were all coming through. And the business was absolutely beaming, and it was doing really well. I was really happy with that. But then a huge catalyst moment occurred in my life and made me reset and reassess everything again. So that was when my father decided to take his life. He was the only family member that I was really close to from my upbringing and those previous stages that I'd gone through. There was a lot of healing that needed to still be done around my childhood. And I feel I had found purpose through my work and my businesses and thrived in that area, that I had failed to really go deeper with that. You know, as I said, I touched on it when I was younger and I was reading the books and everything, but I got so lost in that hustle and grind. And I believe a big part of me was still in survival mode from when I left home at a young age. And so when my father passed, it's like nothing else mattered. You know, not the luxury car I had, the big house I had, the overseas trips every year, you know, the life I was building. I was married as well. We were supposed to be starting a family, and everything just became so worthless in that moment, like any material object. Or, you know, I was even reflecting on all the things I was spending my time doing. God, I was binge watching Game of Thrones and things. And, you know, it's a great show, but I just really reset and was like, God, when was the last time you even watched a sunset, or, you know, went and spent time in nature, or, you know, there was so many things I was starting to question about my life. And I felt like I started out with this extraordinary upbringing in the mountains, and I'd fallen into becoming the ordinary. And I wanted that extraordinary back. And I started to see the world through my father's eyes, and how he lived with such intention and such purpose before he decided to check out. He had several health issues, and his partner had passed away, and he died of a broken heart. So there was many reasons for his choice. And I always tell people that it was not only his final lesson to me in life, but it was his greatest. Because I wouldn't be the woman that I am today if he didn't choose to do what he did. And I wouldn't have had my awakening. I probably would be living the picket white fence, you know, several kids, you know, still grinding it out in that hustle mindset, that survival mindset, where I was back then. And it was truly a rebirth, an awakening. And so there were a lot of cracks in my marriage at the time as well. My husband had issues from his own childhood, and I believe we mirrored a lot in that in our relationship to each other. And whilst I was willing to review my issues and wanting to work on them from my father's passing, because I'd had that awakening, he unfortunately didn't. And so I bought us tickets to Tony Robbins and went to go to Date with Destiny. And unfortunately, he refused to come. It just wasn't his time, and he wasn't ready to do that inner work. And I have full acceptance around that now. But at the time, it was crushing, because I saw it as a reflection of his commitment to me and our life and our marriage and our vows. So I took my rings off and said, well, I'm going without you. So I went, and I came home, and I packed my bags and I left, and I started my new life 2 weeks later. And I haven't looked back since. And that was just over 3 years ago now. And it's been extraordinary. It's been unbelievable. I can't even describe what the last 3 years has been like. Not only have I done so much deep inner work around my childhood, my parents and my upbringing, but, you know, even relationships, my marriage ending, all of it, I just feel like a brand new person, but I've brought forward all the elements from my old story that were absolutely necessary to bring with me. And I've made peace with my past and my former self. And I'm really proud of her for how far she brought me in my journey to help me become who I am today. And I just learned so many valuable lessons, you know, especially around family, is that I think the hardest lesson I had to learn is that people that hate themselves will always find a reason to hate you. People will project onto you. They'll find ways to make you suffer because they are. And when you realize that that has nothing to do with you, and you have to accept people and leave them where they are, that's exactly what I've done to create the most inner peace I've ever had before in my life. And I actually did this meditation and had this really powerful visualization. I visualized that there was all this rainbow colored mist in front of me. And as I was walking through the mist, a set of stairs appeared. And as I started walking up the stairs, at the top and the surface of this mist was all the faces of the people from my past that I needed to release and let go and have forgiveness for, and acceptance for all the pain and hurt and projection and things that they had really kept me small, I feel, even though I take full responsibility for doing that myself. It was really necessary that, yeah. So as I got to the top of, as I started climbing these stairs and I saw all their faces at the top of the mist, I kept going up the stairs. And as I kept walking up the stairs, they're all waving to me and blowing me kisses as if to say, you're free from us now. Like, go on your journey, go leave us where we're meant to be, you know, go do your thing. And it was so powerful. And I kept climbing the stairs. And then when I got to the top of the stairs, there was nothing but white mist now. And then there was this bright light coming through. And as I walked towards the bright light, all the mist disappeared. And that bright light was actually a stage light. And then all of my audience were on their feet and all applauding me walking out on stage. And it was this powerful, powerful visualization that I had, that my mind just took me there and showed me all the rainbow colors are like all the colors of our chakras, you know. And it was so fitting that I needed to, you know, have all that forgiveness and that acceptance and say goodbye to everyone from the past, but whilst stepping into my future. And this was my purpose now. And these were the people I was there to serve. And it was just really powerful, really, really eye-opening to me. I'm also a manifesting generator by human design, and I've truly tapped into the forcefulness of my gift in that. I never knew how powerful my gift was to manifest, and I've been doing so much of it in the last 12 months. And I now realize how many things I actually manifested in my life in the past. And I share so many stories with people about what I've done and what I've created. And so I'm really utilizing that more now moving forward, which is really exciting. So that's the catalyst behind the rebirth, the change of events in my life. And yeah, it's brought me to where I am today. And then I created the movement, which you were a part of the very first event to come along and witness that, which was incredible. It was so nice to have you there. And I'm so glad we connected. And I've loved watching your journey since then as well.
Thank you.
And from that, you know, the pandemic hit months later. We're in the middle of a national tour when the pandemic hit, and I had to pivot. And I had just become certified, you know, to be a coach, and was already in the speaking space and things. And it was like moths to a flame, you know, when I created that movement. I had no idea it would become so big. And I'd had people from all corners of the world reaching out to me saying they were tuning in to watch my lives and watch my stories like their morning coffee every day. Even I had this gentleman say he was working out in Dubai with the camels, and it was just him in the desert. And every day he would tune in to watch my stories like his morning coffee. And he said it was like medicine, and he needed to hear my messages and everything I shared. And you just underestimate how powerful one voice or one life experience can spread, like just how far it can spread and how many lives it can impact. And when I truly grasped the reality of that, that's when I knew there was something so much bigger than myself in all of this to keep spreading it, keep sharing it. And that's exactly what I've done. So from the movement expanding and growing globally, it's now become the Inspiring Minds Academy. And the Academy has multiple programs that assist people in life and business. I love watching people like myself, you know, that former version of myself that just had that fire inside me, but didn't know how to tap into that and how to utilize that inner calling that was saying, come on, there's something more, there's something more. And I lacked the guidance and that power proximity to be able to take action. And I could only imagine how much I would have been able to tap into that power and that inner fire a lot earlier if I had the correct environment or I had the right support. And so I want to be that for people all over the world. And I am. I have clients from 9 different countries at the moment. And I just don't see it stopping. And I have big plans for the future, and I'm working on my first book at the moment. And I plan to keep spreading this message as far and wide as possible, that anyone has the potential and the capabilities to create the extraordinary, and more importantly, become extraordinary, because that's what I preach in all of my teachings. The universe responds to who you are being, not what you want. And if you want those high caliber clients, if you want those relationships, really meaningful, purposeful relationships, you have to become these things within yourself first. You want to be that 7-figure business owner, you got to sit in that energy and believe that you deserve it, and you are that CEO or that business owner before it happens. And that's what I love helping people do, is acknowledge their capabilities, their potential, and their purpose, get clear on their vision, their mission, and develop that confidence. That's why my clients are drawn to me. They love my confidence. They love my zest for life. And they see that every day I live with intention. And I do. I truly do. And I believe that's the strongest message that I can relay to anyone out there, is live with intention every day.
What a powerful story. I've got a page of notes and therefore a page of questions. And, and I just don't know where to start. I would love to know, I think we might go back to this, go a bit more sort of early, and then we'll bring it back to what you're doing now. I would love to know, I guess, you mentioned you got into the book, Louise Hay's, Heal Yourself. I believe that was the name of the book.
You can heal your life.
Yeah, to heal your life. And I was just curious, I guess, to maybe for people that have been through a tough upbringing, and tough is subjective. It's whatever your perception is. Because some people have what most people would call a great childhood, but they weren't seen, they weren't loved, they weren't validated, they weren't they didn't have the childhood that they wanted back then. And a lot of people, I'd say majority of people, they do use that as a hindrance and an anchor that holds them back rather than drives them forward to give them purpose, give them meaning, to help them chase their vision and their mission. I was curious if you were like that early on, or was there like a catalyst or a moment that kind of shifted your perspective on that? Because a lot of people, I guess, default to the victim option, which is me as well. Like when you go through something, poor me, poor me, poor me. But you've had a tough upbringing, you've been through some challenging times, and I guess the question is, did you always view it as an empowering thing to push you forward and empower your life, or was there more of a victim mindset early on, and how did that change? If that's do you understand the question?
Yeah, I do. And it's a great question. And when I have been asked before, I've in fact, I've asked myself that question, because I called myself the black sheep of the family for a long time. And then I said, no, scrap that. I'm anything but a sheep. I'm the complete opposite to a sheep. And I think for me, Lewis, the biggest thing is I had an example of what I didn't want to become. As simple as that, right? I saw what I didn't want. And sometimes we don't always know what we do want, but we can have a very clear vision of what the hell we do not want. And seeing the example of what that life had become for either of my parents or my older sibling, I didn't want to be that. I didn't want that for myself. And I don't know, whether it has anything to do with my past life and who I was in the past, but I don't know. I didn't want to follow suit, and it was available to me. It was available to me. Like they used to joke, like, come on, Jess, have a cone with us or something, like it was totally possible for me to just sit there and bong on with my family and be a part of that. And I just despised it so much. I hated the smell. I hated what it did to them, how they behaved. I just wanted nothing to do with it. And the same as, as I got older and I was at these exclusive high-end events that I was hosting and things, there were people that were offering lines and things to me. And I was like, no, I'm having an energy drink. That was as wild as I got. it's just one of those things that I do actually remember being a teenager and buying, I think it was like the Dolly magazine or something. And again, because there's no internet, I would go and buy that every month. And I would enter the competitions, and that was like back then when you didn't have social media and things. That's how you connected with the outside world. And I'd read these magazines, and I'd probably read them like 10 times over. It was like colored TV to me. It was entertaining. And I remember reading a story in there about a girl that had tried an ecstasy tablet at school and died. She died at a party. And I remember reading this and thinking, why would people play Russian roulette with their life? It just didn't make sense to me. And although my family wasn't into the hard end stuff, it was still enough of an example to show me how much drugs can ruin your life. And yeah, just from reading that one story and hearing one example, I was like, no, I'm a risk taker in the areas of my life where it's necessary to take risks, but not when it comes to my health and my life. So
how does one person adopt that belief? So say someone who's listening right now, they've got parents who were either like into drugs or into, I guess, toxic behaviors or demonstrated toxic behaviors. And I guess when they were younger, gave them a painful childhood growing up for whatever reason that is. How can someone adopt more of a healing approach and more of a empowering approach rather than a victim approach?
They need to find that source of love somewhere, because ultimately that's what all human beings need and want to survive. When we're born, the first thing is we're put onto the chest of our mother, and we have that skin to skin, and we feel that bond immediately. And a lot of people can experience trauma before they're even born. They experience it in the wound, and I've learned a lot in this space that people talk about having traumas brought on from their parents before they're born, depending what state their parents were in. I've worked with one woman who said that she learned her mum continuously said while she was pregnant, I should have had an abortion. Right? The language and the energy she's carrying from saying that to an unborn child. I've worked with this woman who has deep, deep insecurities, and I believe it stems from right back as early as that. And so when people don't have love in their immediate resources in their family, which I did in some aspects, but in other aspects as I got older, I didn't. I needed to find that elsewhere. And so that's what I was saying, is that I found it through my hobbies and my interests and other people and the family that I chose, not the family that I was designated to. I got to choose my own family and had really close friends and members that, older people that I claimed as my mum. I remember my first serious boyfriend out of high school, his stepmom, sorry, she is still my mother figure now. She calls me her foster daughter. I call her my foster mum. And so we adopted each other as our chosen mother and daughter. And so I encourage people to find that in the world, and not accept that and settle that for what you have in your immediate existence and say that this is it. It doesn't have to be it. You get to choose, and you have the power of choice. And as heartbreaking as it can be, and as I said, that was one of the major lessons for me, was that people that hate themselves will always find a way to hate you. And a really powerful question I ask my students is, who decided your worth, and when did you decide to accept it? Because whether it's the bully at school, whether it's the parent that neglected or abused you, whether it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend that dumped you and broke your heart and rejected you, somewhere along the line, someone decided your worth and you decided to accept it. And when you realize that you gave your power away in that, and you have the choice to take it back, that's when you get to truly master success for yourself in your life and on your terms, because success means something different to everyone. And that's why I don't only focus on the entrepreneurial journey and success in business and wealth. It's more about the becoming the person that seeks freedom and financial abundance and inner peace and growth and personal evolution. You have to desire that more than the wealth and the success in business. Otherwise, you're chasing a never-ending dream.
You just made me think of another question, but I'm going to write that down and come back to it.
Yeah.
The one I was about to ask is, you mentioned when you were, I forget what part of your story this was at, but I think you were working something and you said you knew there was something more out there. You knew there
Mhm.
was something more for you, that you were capable of more, you were born for more. That to me says consciousness, or screams awareness, or a consciousness of whatever word you want to use. Is that something that's always been present with you? Is that something that you've had to develop? And just, I guess, how has consciousness played a role in your life so far?
Yeah, great. Another great question. So I didn't mention that when I was 14, I got my first job in a cafe in my local small, very small country town, where all of my peers were either pregnant or doing drugs by the time they were my age at 14. And so I decided to get a job in a cafe to escape my environment at home. And I was paid $4 cash an hour. My gosh, I look back at it now, I think, what? That's so illegal. But back then, in a small town girl, that's all I needed, and I didn't really have anywhere to go or spend it. But it showed me that you put in the work and you gain reward. And by being around these people who were business owners, Lewis, they had their own business. They were running a thriving cafe that was running off its feet, like I was run off my feet. And I got to learn customer service. I got to meet all different people coming through. There was tourists. This was the hot spot where the tourist bus would pull up and all the tourists would get off and come to this cafe. And so I'm meeting people with accents and people from all walks of life, different ages. I had stuck up people that were like, oh, I want a better coffee mug than this, or, whatever. But then I got really cool people that I just got to learn from. And the skills I developed in that job exceeded far more than that $4 an hour. And that's when I discovered that it's not about what you earn, it's what you learn. And so from the age of 14, when I had bought my first book called You Could Heal Your Life, and I used my money from my cafe job to buy that book, right? So I've got my book, I've got my job, and I'm meeting people and realizing that there's so much more out there, beyond this little town that I live in, beyond the four walls of my home that consumes this toxic environment that I had to go home to every day. I knew there was more out there, and I got a taste for it from that age of 14. And from there, as I said, I kept buying books and I kept learning more. And I just wish the internet was a big thing back then. I could only imagine what I would have been able to tap into. And so I want people to know that the internet is so powerful. You can use it. The books may be there, but you've got to want to raise your own levels of consciousness. You have to have the intention to want to grow and see what else is out there beyond your immediate existence. That's the state of suffering, comes from only sitting in your immediate existence. I post some random stuff sometimes on social media and say, hey, just so you know, this is going on the other side of the world. Get yourself out of your own shit bubble for a minute, right? It could be anything from this whale coming up under a little canoe where someone's out in one of those big deep hole things in the Mexico or something, and it's just like, whoa, like that's happening right now. You're sitting here crying over whatever, and that's happening right now. Or there's like this little Ethiopian that's sitting there eating a bowl of oats and dirt. It's just like, snap out of your own shit and realize there's so much more out there. And the internet allows you to see what is going on beyond you. I only had a magazine or a book, or a couple of tourists that came to town. I had far less resources to show me that there was more out there in the world. But now you literally only have to tap into a free platform on social media to see what is truly going on in the world, or type something into Google. It is so powerful to acknowledge that there's so much more beyond you.
Do you have any recommendations on books or podcasts, or where to start? Obviously, yourself and your community that you're building and the movement that you're creating. So, is there any? I guess just I like to give, I guess, people that are just getting started, or people that are on their journey, just like some really good practical things they can do. Obviously, the book you've mentioned. Is there any other resources or things that you do? Like a lot of meditation shows up a lot of my podcast, or awareness, or breath work, or networking courses. You mentioned Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Is there any just I guess simple go to options for people to start to raise their consciousness awareness? I love the fact that you said you have to want to. That's probably the most that's the most
Yeah.
common trait you need. You need to want to work on yourself, grow, develop your awareness, your consciousness, your level of self-worth. But back to the question, is there any books or recommendations for people to get started on their journey or to further their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I always recommend one particular book to my students that are starting out in this space, and that is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. It's very similar to what I was talking about feeling like an ordinary person in society with doing the hustle and grind and living paycheck to paycheck or whatever, and just feeling like what else is there to life. I think this book really grasps that, and he shares his story about going to spend time with the monks and what he learned. And it's just really powerful. So he obviously, very similar to what I was saying, is I have the luxury car, the big house, the overseas trips, all the things. From outside looking in, my life was Instagram worthy. It was, the ideal, perfect life, but I was dying on the inside. I had no idea who I was or who I wanted to be. I was just fitting in. I created this identity that I thought I needed in order to survive, to feel loved, to feel worthy, to find purpose somehow. And we get lost in that. And that's what I love, helping people bridge that gap between the reality of who they are inside, as opposed to this identity they've created on the outside for the rest of the world to try and accept.
I'd love to shift to a degree, but still around the mindset basis of things. You've said you've experienced death. Even I was just looking at the correlation between when you were 6 years old and you learned that story and you went home to mum and dad. You're like, why did you give birth to me if I'm going to die? I find that quite humorous. And then to obviously experience what you experienced with your dad, I would love to know, I guess, your beliefs around death now and maybe what they used to be, and maybe in a way that people can adopt one. Because I know people that are petrified of death, and I know people that are totally okay with it and they accept what's that it's actually a gift of life. Imagine if death wasn't a thing, then it's like, so I'd love to know, I guess, your beliefs around death.
Yeah, a great question. Again, I feel that I've asked myself a lot of these questions over my time, and I think now I'm living with such purpose and intention more than I ever have. And I know that I have big plans, and I know how many lives I'm impacting, and I will continue to impact. So I don't want to die anytime soon, because I'm not done with my mission. But at the same time, I feel like I've reached that blissful state of my life where I'm so goddamn content and happy with who I am and what I've accomplished, that, if it became my time, it was my time. I'm good with that. And I don't feel like I've left any stone unturned, sort of thing. It's like, I know there's so much more I can do, but I also know that I have lived a very colorful life to this stage, very colorful. And I know I've created and experienced the extraordinary, and that's enough for me at this stage. I'm not afraid of it.
What would you say to someone who is petrified of it? If someone who's not at that level, maybe they're the 6-year-old you, they have that, what would you say to someone who's got that current belief where they're petrified of it, it scares them? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so touching on when I was 6, the other part of that really frustrated me was I was saying that, why would you have me so that I could die one day? Like, why say, hey, here's this great life, but it can be taken from you? And then the other side of that was so frustrating to me was, we don't get to choose when. Right? So here's this life that I didn't ask for. I didn't ask to be brought into this life. Someone else decided that for me and conceived me and brought me here. And then they're saying that, but it's going to end at some point and you don't get to decide when. And so not having power over that, call me a control freak, I don't know. But at age of 6, I was just like, nobody tells me when I'm going to die. That's not fair. Like, I want control of this. I want control of my own destiny and when I get to leave this place, And so for someone that fears it, I would ask them, where's the fear coming from? Like, what do they actually fear? Because I'd really start to crunch down, because they need to come from that place of logic. And I would think that if someone feared death, they would fear that they haven't lived enough to cross over. And if that is the case, then I'd say then leverage the shit off that fear and say, well, if my time could be done tomorrow, what am I doing today to live like it's my last day? And that's what happened with my dad's passing. You know, having someone here 1 minute and gone the next made me realize how short life is and how it can be taken from us in a moment. And so that was why I removed all fear of uncertainty. I used to value certainty more. It's, you know, one of those two are part of our 6 human needs that Tony Robbins talks about. And I know that the former version of me used to value certainty. I valued certainty because I came from a dysfunctional upbringing and I needed security and stability. That's what I wanted. That's why I settled down, got married, and settled for the conformity of the normal life, that the common life, right? And I suppressed that wildness in me to settle for the certainty. And so when Dad passed and I reassessed all of that and I went to that Tony Robbins event, I knew that the real me, not the one I created in order to survive, but the real me valued uncertainty. I live for that shit. And I wanted to explore everything and anything this world had to offer. And I will stop at nothing to experience that before my time is done. And I want to instill that inspiration and motivation in other people to do the same, because we don't get to choose. We're not in control. And if we don't have control of that, ask yourself, what do you have control of? And the thing you do have control of is how you choose to live it now. So if you don't want any regrets, then start living with that intention now.
There's some valuable stuff, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a couple more before we get into I guess sort of more sort of tactical business stuff. Just one more on that question. What was that shift for you to go from the certainty to the uncertainty? Obviously, you said you went to an event with Mr. Tony Robbins himself. Was there a exercise or a moment or a sentence or an aha moment that shifted that for you? And what was that for you?
Well, the exercise was that we broke down what the 6 human needs are.
Yep.
And yeah, do you want to share what they are? Like, do you want your audience to know? Or
yeah, for sure, please.
Yeah. So there's certainty, and then obviously the opposite of that is the uncertainty and variety. You've got significance, love and connection, and your 2 spiritual ones, which is contribution and growth. And so understanding that everybody has these 6 human needs, right? As a human being, we all have them. However, we all value them in different order of priority. And this was one of the catalyst moments when I realized my marriage was over as well, even though, you know, it looked pretty bleak before that. But this was the final nail in the coffin for me, because I realized how much he valued certainty and how it was suffocating our life and our lifestyle, our quality of life. And I realized that again was an example of what I didn't want to become, right? So valuing certainty is restrictions. That's, you know, I've been a little bit of a daring rebel and a rule breaker from the beginning. And, you know, that was evident from a young age, not wanting to follow the crowd, not wanting to follow suit with my family and whatnot, and wanting to do my own thing. So I find that when I really tapped into that and learned about those 6 human needs and how we prioritize them and value them, I realized that I hadn't been honoring who I was for some time. I had shrunk myself to fit into the ideal life that I thought I needed in order to be happy. And I lost myself in that. So that exercise was a huge eye opener, and I love to share that with my students. It's in one of my programs. We talk about that. And yeah, I encourage everyone to write down those 6 and then ask yourself, what order am I prioritizing these in and valuing them in my life? And have a look at how you want to value them moving forward. Yeah. And then have a look at the gap, like the difference in, okay, if this is how I'm valuing them here, but I want to value them in this way to live the life that I want, then I'm not congruent. You know, I'm dreaming one way and I'm acting another. And that's exactly what I was doing.
Powerful stuff, guys. Please rewatch this video, this podcast, guys, and just sink in, because there's a million nuggets flying at you with every sentence. Last one before we do get practical with some business stuff. You mentioned just about healing, letting go. You shared like I guess a spiritual experience. How I think you walked up the stairs and you saw all these people that had that let go for you and had hurt you or given you pain. For people that have judgment or pain or trauma or whatever word they use on people that they just haven't let go of, what is it that people can do to give love, to let go, to understand that it's all happened for them? What is it that you would say to them, or what would you get them to do to get to that point?
Yeah, I love this question. And the answer is not what anyone would expect and not what anyone wants to do. But if you're ready for it,
Please.
You have to start with forgiving yourself first. Because again, as I was saying, not being congruent and having that gap between the reality of who you are inside and this identity that you've created externally, you've abandoned yourself in that. And in that abandonment, you've allowed people to mistreat you. You've allowed people to hurt you, and you gave away your power. And so whilst you're searching for forgiveness and acceptance in them, you haven't found it within yourself first. And when you start with you as number one, which you should always do, you are the number one driver and decider and power taker, then you need to start with forgiving yourself for the ways in which you've abandoned yourself.
Powerful.
Make a list, and truly sit with that. Cry it out, scream it out, yell it out, do what you need to do, but let those demons go. And the moment you have true forgiveness for yourself in that is the moment that you have forgiveness for others, because you realize that they're human too. And they are carrying the same weight as from their own demons as you are carrying yours. And it's such a blissful, beautiful place to be. And that's why when I was going up the stairs, they were waving at me and blowing me kisses, not the other way around. It wasn't me having to say, I forgive you now. It was them waving and blowing kisses to me because it was the other way around. Yeah, that's just dawning on me now. This is powerful. Beautiful. Yeah, I realized that I had forgiven myself, and I was ready to climb those stairs and go to that next level in my own journey. And I was prepared to leave them behind in my old story.
That's a powerful answer.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit more businessy now. So the movement, the Inspiring Minds movement. Can you tell us, I guess, what it is, what you do? Just a little. I know you shared a little bit about that, helping people become extraordinary or live an extraordinary life, their purpose, their mission, their vision. But yeah, just to maybe expand a little bit, I guess, what is the movement? What are you there to do? How do you do it? Just give us as much as you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I do, it just dawned on me, I wanted to share one last message on that last topic. One powerful thing, if I can leave you with that, is if you don't let the past die, it won't let you live.
I like that. That's a nice one.
Yeah. Okay, so it's now called Inspiring Minds Academy. It started as a global movement because my intention was purely just to wake people up. I wanted to share my journey and my experiences with other people in the world that I knew were just like me, who lacked the resources, lacked the community, lacked the support, lacked the guidance, lacked that power of proximity, but they had that fire in them and they were ready to ignite it. And that was the purpose of the movement initially. And I was scouting for talent to put on the stage, and I just wanted to be the behind the scenes girl. And everyone wanted to know, who is this girl that started this movement and what's her story? And the more I started to share it, as I said, it was moths to a flame. They came from all corners of the world that I could not expect. And it helped me evolve even more on my journey and understand the power and impact of my own message and my own experiences. And I haven't stopped with it since. But the people I most enjoy working with in this space and who my programs are mostly catered to is those specific people. I call them success seekers. And I have a community on Facebook called Success Seekers. And I don't just tailor it to business and entrepreneurship, although that's a big factor in it, because these people cannot be tamed. This fire in them cannot be put out. And they're looking for ways to ignite it and keep it lit and spread it like wildfire. And that's what my programs allow them to do. Allows them to step into their full potential as a human being and leverage off this burning desire inside them for something more, but allow them to create a plan and a vision that they can aim for. Because when they've got that fire inside them, they can be dreamers and they lack that direction. And they also have all the external noise as a bit of a conflict there, right? They've still got the self-doubt, they've got their old programming, they've got the external noise saying, you're not good enough. Who are you to do that? You know, I've been in that place myself, and that's what I'm writing about in my book. I'm sharing the raw, real, ugly side of success and the parts that people don't often talk about. I don't glorify the journey of entrepreneurship and success. It's yeah, I don't want to inflate the version of that. I don't want people to think it's, you know, like helicopters and dollar bills floating in the sky kind of thing. Yeah, you know, it's just like that shit doesn't buy you happiness. I'm about creating true personal wealth, and that is personal evolution. So when you focus on the becoming, the external just you tap into that abundance, you become abundant, and you have to start with you. Everything starts with you.
Yeah, you just reminded me of a quote. I think I saw it the other day. It's like, the man who enjoys walking will go further than the man that loves the destination. And learning how to enjoy, not glorify the entrepreneur, the money, the girls, the cars, the travel, where it's like there's days where you feel lonely as fuck. Like nothing's working, clients are not coming through, you got bills to pay, you've got doubts in yourself. Can I really do this? And it's I love the vulnerability with yourself, Jess. It's something I value very highly, and it's something that you're very, very strong at, and it comes maybe or maybe not, it comes natural to you, or maybe you've worked very hard on it, but it is truly inspiring. I guess we might have to do a part 2, because I think I've asked maybe a third of the page of what I've written down, but just for people that have made it to the end, Jess, I just would love to say thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. And if people wanted to reach out, connect with you for your services, or just to say thank you for what it is that you're doing to this world and for this podcast, how can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, well, if you want to come and join our free community on Facebook, the Success Seekers, you can find that Facebook group. So just called Success Seekers. The link is in my bio on Instagram, and you'll find it on my Facebook page as well. So Jessica Kate on Facebook, Success Seekers Facebook group, and on Instagram, I'm the Success Seekers coach. I just want people to find their own version of success and truly build what that is for them, for their life. You know, forge your own lane, build your own stage, claim your space in this world. We all deserve to have a voice and, you know, fulfill our own dreams. And if I can help you do that and inspire you just with one little story, or one little quote, or you want to completely immerse yourself in my teachings and come into a program, you're welcome. You know where to find me.
Beautiful story, beautiful human, beautiful soul, changing lives. And I look for it. It's been a pleasure to connect with you in person and watch your journey from a distance as well. And I just look forward to seeing the impact that you're already making and the impact that you're going to make. So thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for getting to the end of this podcast. Share, like, subscribe, send it to someone that you think would get value from this and needs or wants to hear this stuff. And one more time, Jess, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.